My name is Vikram, and I am telling this story in my own words because what happened to me in that jungle still follows me. That night, I was driving alone on a forest road. It was supposed to be a shortcut. The road was narrow, surrounded by tall trees and completely empty. There were no streetlights, no houses, and no phone signal. Then the rain started. Not light rain, heavy rain. The kind that turns the road slippery and fills the jungle with noise. Thunder echoed above the trees, and every flash of lightning showed endless forest on both sides. Around midnight, my car suddenly shook. The engine stopped. I tried starting it again and again, but nothing happened. Rain hit the roof hard. Then the headlights flickered once and went out. I was sitting in complete darkness. I stepped out of the car. Rain soaked me instantly. The air was cold. The jungle smelled wet and rotten. I opened the hood, but I didn't know what I was doing. My phone had no signal. No help. That was when I heard footsteps. Slow footsteps. Not running. Not hurried. Walking. I turned on my flashlight and pointed it toward the sound. At first, I saw only rain and trees. Then lightning flashed. A man was standing on the road some distance away. He was tall, wearing muddy clothes. I felt relieved and shouted for help. He didn't answer. He started walking toward me. His steps were heavy and stiff. Something felt wrong. When lightning flashed again, my heart dropped. The man had no head. There was no face, no neck. Only a dark, wet stump above his shoulders, rain pouring straight down onto his body. I couldn't move. The headless man stopped a few steps away from me. His fists were tight. Mud and dark stains covered his clothes. I heard a strange sound, like slow breathing. He raised one arm and pointed toward my car. I stepped back in fear. Then I noticed what he was holding in his other hand. A human head. The hair was soaked with rain. The eyes were half open. The mouth slowly moved. The head turned and looked directly at me. "No one leaves," it whispered. Lightning struck close by. I ran. I didn't know where I was going. I slipped on wet mud, crashed through bushes, branches cutting my skin. Behind me, I heard footsteps following me, slow but constant. The rain kept falling. The forest felt endless. I tripped and fell near an old broken hut hidden between trees. I crawled inside and held my breath. Outside, the footsteps stopped. Silence. Then something hit the wall of the hut. Once. Twice. Slow scratching sounds followed. Through a crack in the wooden wall, I saw the headless man standing outside in the rain. He lifted the head in his hand. The head smiled and huddled inside the broken down hut. My back pressed so hard against the rough wooden wall I thought it might break. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs, and I held my breath, trying to become invisible, part of the shadows. Outside, the jungle was being drowned by a relentless, heavy rain that seemed to have no end. For a moment, the terrifying knocking on the door had stopped. But the silence that followed was somehow worse, thick with dread and anticipation. Then, a new sound. Movement. Slow, deliberate footsteps began to circle the hut. Each step was a wet squelch in the mud, a sound that seemed to measure out the final moments of my life. I couldn't see anything through the cracks in the wall, but I could feel a presence. It was a cold, heavy weight pressing in from all sides. The air inside the small space grew frigid, as if the jungle itself had taken a deep, icy breath. And then a voice spoke. It wasn't from outside the door, or from any single direction. It was everywhere at once, a calm, resonant whisper that vibrated in my bones. "You ran," it said, the words echoing in the claustrophobic confines of the hut. "Everyone runs." Before I could even process the words, the door began to move. A low, agonizing creak sliced through the downpour as it swung open on its own, revealing the figure standing in the doorway. It was the headless man. Rain streamed down his broad, severed shoulders, soaking his muddy clothes. In one hand, he still held the head, dangling it casually by the hair. I stared, paralyzed by a fear so profound it felt like my soul had turned to ice. The face on the head looked different now. It seemed older, ancient. The skin was stretched unnaturally tight over the bones, and the eyes, which had been closed before, were now wide open, staring directly into mine. Then the head spoke, its voice the same one that had filled the hut just moments before. "This forest," it rasped, "takes what it is owed." I tried to scream, to speak, to beg, but my throat was a desert. My legs were stone, refusing every desperate command from my brain. The headless man took a step inside. The tiny hut seemed to shrink around him, the shadows deepening, swallowing what little light there was. The constant roar of the rain outside began to fade, replaced by a profound, crushing silence that pressed against my eardrums, making them ache. He moved closer, raising the head until it was just inches from my face. And in that terrifying proximity, a horrifying realization struck me. I recognized the face. It wasn't just some random stranger. It was his. The man holding it. The same tattered, mud-caked clothes. The same faint, jagged scar just above the eyebrow. The truth hit me like a physical blow, too late to do any good. The head in his hand belonged to the last person who had tried to escape this nightmare. He was carrying his own head. With a slow, fluid motion, the headless man lowered the head to the muddy floor. It didn't topple over. It stood perfectly upright on the dirt, its wide, unblinking eyes still locked on me. "You broke down here," the head said, its voice devoid of any emotion. "That means you were chosen." The body moved toward me again. I felt a touch on my arm, a cold so intense it burned. A creeping numbness instantly spread from the point of contact. A chilling paralysis that flowed through my veins like ice water. I squeezed my eyes shut. A silent, desperate prayer forming in my mind, for a miracle, for deliverance, for anything, and the jungle answered. A deafening crack of thunder exploded directly overhead. So close and so powerful that the entire hut shook violently. The ground trembled beneath me. For a single, crucial moment, the headless man froze, as if stunned by the raw power of the storm. That was my chance. I didn't think, I just reacted. I shoved past him with a strength I didn't know I possessed and burst out into the torrential rain. My feet hit the slick mud and I immediately slipped, crashing to the ground. I scrambled back up, fueled by pure adrenaline, and ran. I ran blindly toward where I thought the road was. Thorny branches tore at my clothes and skin, and thick, grasping mud filled my shoes, trying to pull me back into the forest's embrace. Behind me, I heard the squelching footsteps again, faster now and alarmingly close. Just as I felt a new wave of despair wash over me, I saw it. The road, a faint gray ribbon through the dense, dark trees, and my car, sitting right where I'd left it. As I stumbled out of the woods, the headlights flickered on by themselves, cutting to bright paths through the downpour. I didn't question it. I ripped the driver's side door open, threw myself inside, and slammed it shut. My hands, shaking uncontrollably, fumbled for the keys in the ignition. I turned the key, praying. The engine sputtered, coughed, and then roared to life. The very instant the engine caught, the footsteps stopped. Dead silence, apart from the engine and the rain. My eyes darted to the rearview mirror. In the dim, flickering light, I saw him. The headless man was standing at the very edge of the trees, a dark silhouette against the even darker jungle. He slowly raised his arm, his hand still empty, and pointed directly at me. Then, just as slowly, he turned and walked back into the depths of the forest, swallowed by the darkness. I drove. I didn't look back again. I just drove, my foot pressed to the floor, not stopping until the sun finally broke through the clouds the next morning. I went straight to the nearest police station and reported everything, my voice trembling as I recounted the impossible events. They launched a search of the area. They found the tire tracks from my car. They found the dilapidated hut just as I described. They even found signs that someone, or something, had been there long, long ago. But they found no body, no head, no proof of the man I saw. The old sergeant I spoke to looked at me with a weary, knowing expression. He told me that people have been disappearing on that stretch of road for years, dozens of them. The pattern was always the same, always during a heavy rainstorm, always at night. "You were lucky," he said, patting my shoulder. "Incredibly lucky, but I don't feel lucky. Sometimes, when it's raining hard, I feel my car's engine hesitate for just a second. A phantom stutter that makes my blood run cold. Sometimes, when I glance in the rearview mirror late at night, I get the unshakable feeling that someone is sitting in the back seat, just out of sight. And sometimes, on the quietest nights, when the world is asleep, I hear it. The faint sound of slow footsteps outside my window. Squish, squish, walking, never running, just waiting. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to follow for more tales from the shadows.